Hi everybody, I am at my parents' house to fulfill a very popular video request. I'm a meteorologist and gardener, and a lot of viewers are asking me to give advice on a themed garden. So my mom loves the color yellow, and we have some other fun surprises. In this video, I'm gonna talk about a smart plant choice to cover a pergola, a butterfly-shaped flower that will change your definition of a butterfly garden, and the best flowers to attract those butterflies, and the color yellow, which is my mom's favorite color, and we love a theme. Finally though, I'm gonna finish off with my favorite orchid. This one survives the winter in New York, and aren't those flowers adorable? All right, let's get on with it. For those of you who are new here, thank you for watching. This is my parents' house on Staten Island in New York. This is a USDA Zone 7. We're looking at windmill palms. Like, I have been growing here since I was in high school. I don't live here anymore, but I visit all the time to help with the garden. I wanted to visit specifically this week because the American Wisteria is absolutely gorgeous. One of my mom's requests was a vine that she doesn't have to worry about for her pergola, and the American Wisteria fits the bill so beautifully. Not only is it native, but it reblooms, unlike the Asian wisteria varieties, which are very, very vigorous, and I do not recommend unless you are a botanical garden. Even then, they have to prune every single week. Every single week. Could you imagine? Isn't this so beautiful? I was looking at it when I was in the pool this morning, and I was like, wow, how lucky am I? Now, the only downside to the American wisteria, the thing that sets it apart, is that it's not super fragrant, a very light fragrance. My mom requested some unusual flowers, and this one is really exciting. It's a Butterfly Clerodendrum, and if you look at it, it looks like it's beautiful bluish butterflies taking flight. Isn't that unbelievable? And it has a really special meaning. So in my family, and I know this is the case for so many others, butterflies are, kind of like a symbol of our loved ones who are gone. And I know for my parents, it reminds them of my grandma. My grandmothers just loved flowers, and this one looks like a butterfly. And underneath it, I planted petunias, which attract butterflies. These are awesome annuals. Maybe they're perennials in a more tropical climate, but for here in New York, they are definitely annuals, and they attract lots of butterflies, bloom all summer long. So here's what that container looks like. We have the petunias, and then this beautiful topiary of the Butterfly Clerodendrum, which I thought was really cool. Butterflies also love parsley. Specifically, it's the swallowtail caterpillars that will use parsley as a host plant. So having host plants for butterflies always ensures that you're going to have some beautiful butterflies visit your garden, and native plants are going to fit that bill also. So I actually do have a native plant called a rattlesnake master. So this is a new purchase to attract the butterflies, and the blooms are really, really unusual. So if you have a tropical gardening palette like I do, this is a really awesome plant because it looks very, very exotic, but it is actually a native plant, and it's not spiky. I know this plant looks so scary. I don't know why they give it the name Rattlesnake Master, because you really wouldn't want to buy something that reminds you of rattlesnakes, but in my opinion. But yeah, it's not going to give you any rattlesnakes, and it's not spiky, and it's going to bring butterflies. So beautiful plant. The other request was yellow, and my mom loves hibiscus, and I love tropical plants. So this yellow hibiscus was awesome. The simple yellows tend to actually be a little bit more cost effective too, and I just happen to love it because the whole thing's yellow. I mean, that's kind of cool. Usually I like it when hibiscus have like a little eye in the center, but I really felt like that beautiful pure yellow was kind of unusual. So I do want to add one more plant to that container to trail downward, because you see that they're actually pretty long containers. But either way, really bright, cheery flower, and I really feel like the garden's starting to come together. So a lot of plants are still sprouting. It is only May, and I know this garden looks tropical, but once again, this is New York. So bear with us as my Hedychium Gingers start sprouting back from their winter in the garage. I got these from Hawaii about 15 years ago, and I have so many of them now. They're very vigorous. I mean, really vigorous. I might need to actually split this up a little bit because look, they're all just growing into each other. What a wildly vigorous plant. Beautiful flowers, and it's called the Butterfly Ginger. So again, we are on theme with the butterflies because the flowers look like butterflies and it's super fragrant. And my biggest tip for fragrant plants, and you're gonna see this throughout the video, most important thing, if you like fragrant plants, you need to plant them in places that you are going to pass every single day. So think about your front door, think about your footpath. This is my first tip. Make sure that you always plant them somewhere that you're going to enjoy them. My other tip is if you have a fragrant plant like a lilac, for example, that survives the winter, you don't have to put that in the ground. You can put hardy shrubs in containers too. Just keep in mind that they're not going to handle significant cold as easily. So lilacs, I think, go down to like a zone 4. So that's fine in a container in a zone 7. So those are my 2 tips if you love fragrant plants. Let's move on to more of the yellows here. So we have dahlias, no fragrance with this, but look at that beautiful bloom. My mom loves yellow, so we got yellow. What variety is this, you may ask? Well, I saved the tag. It is called Dazzling Sun. I love dahlias because they really do bloom nonstop. The flowers hold out really, really well. This one is called Seattle. Isn't that cool? Another yellowish dahlia, and the flowers are just gonna get bigger and bigger. I have this variety in my house also. So with this, I also planted some petunias, and I planted some geraniums. My mom loves geraniums because my grandma always loved geraniums. So again, you're seeing the theme here. Every flower has a purpose. Then there's this. This was for Alex. This was for me. I got a gigantic queen palm from Lowe's for $100. It was actually less than $100. It was $99, and that felt a lot better than $100. I may not have bought it if it was $100, but for $99, sure, why not? Don't ask me how it fit in my tiny car, but it did. The fronds were like covering the windshield, and it was so dangerous, but don't worry, it wasn't a long drive. It was fine. I was safe, and the palm tree was safe, and that's even more important, right? So right now, it's kind of filling up this ugly spot in the garden. The good news about this ugly spot is that it's only temporary because I've got cannas that are going to cover this generator. They come back every single year. These are called Robert Kemp cannas. They attract so many hummingbirds. They're beautiful. My whole family loves it. Even my dad. My dad never comes out here. Never. But when he looks out the window in the kitchen, he's like, is that a hummingbird? The cannas are beloved. And also, again, zone 7 here, and we have got a success story with the Musa Sikkimensis bananas. This is called Ever Red. I mulched it. The mama did not make it, but the babies are coming out beautifully. And unlike Musa Beiju, which is our other cold hardy banana that most people know, this one has a really beautiful red stripe to it, and the backing is kind of reddish too. My Musa Beijus have not popped up in my garden yet, so they might be dead. And that's why I am absolutely shocked that this Musa Sikkimensis survived such a cold winter. It could be as cold tolerant as the Musa Beiju. So again, that specific variety is Ever Red. A lot of people ask me about this little Dr. Seuss looking plant. It is a longleaf pine that I got at a plant sale when I was living in Florida. And I brought it up here because you can't find longleaf pines anywhere in New York City. And I was like, why not? They're beautiful vines, and they actually do really well here. So back to the yellow and my tip about containers. So you see, this is an ostrich fern, and this is Baptisia. Look at that beautiful yellow flower on it. And this, I don't have to plant at all. It stays like this all summer long, looking beautiful, because again, these are perennials in a container. So just because you are, container gardening doesn't mean you can't native plant garden with those beautiful ostrich ferns. It doesn't mean you can't perennial garden. It's all fair game. You just gotta, again, keep in mind that they're gonna be exposed to more cold when you keep them in containers. All right, so the theme so far is going really well this year. We're not overdoing the yellow either. We're just putting little splashes of it. I love a theme, but I do think it's important to break up your theme a little bit. So in between the yellows, I have other colors too. We want complementary colors, like warm colors. So yellows go well with oranges and go well with pinks and even reds. We have these beautiful ivy geraniums, just gorgeous. I have a bed of zinnias, which, I don't know, I'm kind of lukewarm on this. This is an experiment. I feel like it needs something else for sure, and I might get rid of them. I don't know. I'm giving it some thought. Also, I'm colorblind, so if I'm wrong about any of the colors of these flowers, let me know in the comments. And while you're in those comments, let me know what your theme is for your garden this year. Okay, mention that my mom likes hibiscus. She had some orders here. She wanted me to find a spot for 1, 2, 3, 4 new hibiscus plants. And so I did. I like that this one is growing on a plant stand because it's going to be closer to eye level. So sometimes people will buy topiary hibiscus, but you could also save a lot of money and just put a smaller hibiscus on a plant stand. So now we get to enjoy those flowers on eye level. This one's not at eye level because of when you're kind of like sitting down from here, it's actually easier to see it when it's on the ground. So all these plants are intentionally placed in different spots for that reason. This one is actually covering like a little bit of a gap in the arborvitaes, so I thought that that was a nice little spot. It also sort of breaks up that repetitious pattern of the arborvitaes. I don't really love arborvitaes. They do a good job of screening the neighbors, which is the intention, right? But I don't know. I wish there was something more exciting. Like if I had all the money in the world, I would do like an espalier of camellias. You know, that would be gorgeous, but that would be so disgustingly expensive. So we have arborvitaes. Also, I have a potted oleander that's poking out. It's not blooming now, but it will be soon, and it's just going to be gorgeous. That spends the winter in the garage. I don't know how we ended up back into the pool area. We were just here. But I actually am glad that we're here because I want to show you this gardenia. And it's unfortunately not following my rules. My rules are you always want to plant fragrant stuff where you're always going to be walking. And we don't walk through here all the time. But the reason why I have this planted here is because it needs to be in a really warm spot because this is a borderline too sensitive plant to grow in New York. But this variety is a hardy gardenia called Summer Snow, and the flowers are gorgeous, and it's getting bigger and bigger every single year, and it's really, really performing very well for me. I kind of cover it up, but not really, to be honest. It's not getting special protection. It's just in a very warm part of a garden, and it's just really happy. So Summer Snow is such a winner. It's much more cold tolerant than Frostproof, which I'm looking at right now. So let me flip the camera. This is the Frostproof gardenia, and I think it's much prettier than Frostproof. It smells delicious up here because everything is just getting trapped. Because we have a wall on one side, we have the door on the other side, and of course we have the epic lilac. Smells so good, so good. So I have the lilac, which of course is only going to bloom now in the spring. This one's called Little Miss Kim, so it stays nice and small. It's never going to get too big, but it will be green during the summertime, and it's not a reblooming lilac. There's a lilac called Boomerang Lilac, and that is a re-bloomer, but this one is not, so we're going to just enjoy these blooms for a few more, honestly, probably days, since it's going to be in the 90s this week. This might be the end of the blooms, but what a great run on the Little Miss Kim lilac, and I got it on clearance because it's almost done blooming, so that was a nice win, because I think this cost me less than $15, so it was a pretty nice one, and I'm already excited for next spring when it blooms again, and I'm enjoying them this year. In addition to yellow, my mom really does like pink, so again, you know, you don't want to stick to just one color. You want to do complementary kind of colors. One of my aunts is doing yellow and white this year, and that's a fun color to pick around with, but you do see some of the little picks, the little hints of yellow with the Yucca filamentosa. That's got some yellow in it, so I'm incorporating yellow everywhere. It's an easy color to incorporate everywhere, so so it's an easy theme to stick to. We've got roses that are very, very low maintenance. Knockout roses are great. This is your zero maintenance rose that's going to keep on blooming all the way until November. Thanksgiving some years. Awesome rose bush, great in containers, doesn't get too huge, and you can keep pruning them to stay smaller. This one's called Sunny. Now I will say, like most roses, it really doesn't keep its yellow flowers. The colors do start off yellow, but then they fade into a white pretty quickly after that. But I like it. I don't even mind that it's white after a few days. You see how yellow it starts off, and then it becomes white. But I still think it's beautiful, super fragrant, and it's gonna look really nice when these ivy geraniums dangle downward. And now I'm gonna end the video with a very special flower that some of you may already know, but many of you may not. This is a hardy ground orchid. Isn't this absolutely gorgeous? Just like all orchids, it has a couple of really common traits. When you look at the flower up close, you can see it's just like those flowers that you love at the grocery store. Those tropical orchids have that beautiful lip. Do you see that? That modified petal. That's like a nice little perch for the pollinators that call it home. The flowers have such like a gorgeous throat to them, just like you would expect from any other orchid, but this is a perennial, which means it's going to survive the winter. And you see behind me, my parents' cars are right behind me. This is growing on the edge of a driveway, so such a low maintenance plant. It's just as low maintenance as any other perennial, like a hosta, for example, which is growing right behind it. And it's just so colorful and bright and cheery, and the flowers are just little pockets of joy. Now, there are actually almost 60 native orchids to New York, and a lot of people don't realize that because they think orchids are tropical, but orchids are actually one of the largest genus of, or I guess group of flowers in the world. There are about 100,000 recognized orchid species and varieties. It's kind of hard to even wrap my head around that amount, and they have those same kind of form to the flowers. But most of those 100,000 orchids are tropical. Luckily, though, there are a few that are not, and the only downside is that, yeah, a lot of the native orchids are going to be endangered because they're so specific, those growing habits. This just happens to be not a very picky, cold-tolerant orchid at all. It grows pretty much anywhere, especially loves part shade, but it is not a native orchid. This one is native to Asia, not to the United States. Those native orchids are really expensive. Hardy lady slipper, you maybe want to Google that, and you're going to be amazed by how beautiful those flowers are. If you're not familiar with hardy orchids, be prepared to fall in love. And those hardy orchids are growing right underneath my stubborn magnolia. I love these trees. They're getting really big right now, though. Do you see this? Look at that beautiful flower on it. One of dozens and dozens that will be blooming very shortly. And this tree really went through it. It had to be replanted at one point, and it wasn't healthy even when we got it, but it's so lush and healthy now. They are so easy to grow in the New York City area. They love it here, and I'm glad to see that they're being planted more often. But if you need to pick a southern magnolia, Little Gem or Teddy Bear. Those are the two cultivars you really want, because nobody here has got room for a giant Bracken's Brown Beauty Southern Magnolia. I mean, and if you do have the room, then enjoy, because they're beautiful plants and they get huge and gorgeous. But Little Gem stays nice and small, and it actually blooms more frequently. It'll keep on blooming until November some years. So I love Little Gem. This one is not Little Gem. It's Big Gem. It's a gem that's big. Anyway, it's Bracken's Brown Beauties, the cultivar. I hope that you have a wonderful, absolutely fantastic May. I will, of course, be chatting with you all before the month is over, because I got to show you my garden on Long Island. But it's going fast. So before you know it, we're going to be entering meteorological summer, which is June, July, August here in the Northern Hemisphere. Have a great one. Bye.